Hello everyone, welcome to biology class. This is the chapter number 2 we are beginning today. The chapter discusses about cells. Today we will be discussing the following topics. We will begin with what is a cell, then we will have a look on how the cell was discovered, followed by the cell theory. This is an important topic with regard to this chapter. Cell theory is very important. Followed by this, the last topic of the class will be we will be seeing different shapes of cells and different sizes which are seen in different cells. Let us begin today's class. First topic we will see here is what is a cell. See, every individual, it can be any living organism, it is made up of cells. So generally we can say cell is the fundamental, or we can say basic, structural and functional unit of all living beings, be it plants, be it it can be animals, it can be any living form. It is having cell as the fundamental structure and the functional unit of life, and each and every cell has its own life. Every cell can live or sustain as a separate entity. So we can relate this to this flowchart given here. Different cells group up together, and what they make is they make up a tissue, and different tissues join together or work together to form an organ, and different organs form an organ system, and multiple organ system forms an individual. You can relate it to the human beings now. The human body, that is an individual, it is comprised of different organ systems like the digestive system, circulatory system, respiratory system, and so on. So for example, the digestive system has many organs. So a particular organ system is made up of different organs. Like digestive system example we take, it is having the mouth. From the mouth it begins, followed by the food pipe, then the stomach, then the small and the large intestines. So like this, different organs are the part of that. So organs are making organ system. And if we go out onto the smaller scale, organs are made up of tissue, and different tissues are made up of individual cells. So the most basic unit of life is what? It is a cell. So that is the definition or the introduction for a cell. Now the cells were discovered. Before that, the most important discovery in the field of biology was the invention of microscope. So the first microscope was given by the scientist known as Antony von Leeuwenhoek. You have to remember the name. Leeuwenhoek was the person who gave or constructed the first microscope. Actually, it was just basic lenses only were used. It was not an advanced microscope, but it was a basic kind of a lens only. Using that, he used to observe the things. So the first microscope given by Leeuwenhoek. Followed by this, we were having many types of microscopes. All those of the ancient time or the earlier times were called as the simple microscope. They were simply having a lens that was a biconvex lens. The simple biconvex lens was there. Followed by this, you can see here, yes, the photograph is given of the Leeuwenhoek's simple microscope. After the invention of the Leeuwenhoek's microscope, there were certain developments that were made in the microscope. New models of microscope were invented thereafter, and Robert Hooke came up with his model of microscope, and he observed the cork cells. That is, here you can see, he observed the cork cells, and what he saw was box-like compartments. The cork cells were observed, and in his microscope he saw these kind of structures which were joined to each other regularly, and they were all looking like a compartment, different individual compartments. This was the first observation, significant observation for cells. This is where we can say the discovery of cells was made. The person who discovered cells is Robert Hooke. The compartments which he observed here in this cork cells were named as cell. The term cell was first time used by Robert Hooke. So here you have to remember the name of this person, Robert Hooke. Who discovered the cell? Robert Hooke. Who invented the first microscope? That was Leeuwenhoek. Let us move on to the next topic. This one was the compound microscope later on. Here you can see in the photograph, this one is the compound microscope. In the biology lab, you can see this, the compound microscope, it is having a magnification power of up to generally up to 2000 times. It depends on different types of microscopes, but the maximum can go up to 2000 types. The modern one, the most advanced one, are the electron microscope. These can magnify much greater here, that is even it can go up to 2 lakh, that is 200,000 times. And here what is used, here the beam of electrons are used which are bent by magnets. We don't have to go into the working of this, so we'll leave this here. Just you have to remember that most advanced microscopes are electron microscopes. Let us move on. Here we have a progress check. So first one, the kind of microscope that consists of the single biconvex lens. So biconvex lens was used where? It was in the case of Leeuwenhoek, and he gave the simple microscope. So answer is simple microscope. Next one, the kind of mirror for throwing light in the Hooke's microscope. Here we have seen Robert Hooke discovered or gave his own microscope. It was the compound microscope. So what was the mirror there? That was the concave mirror. Here you can see it was the concave mirror. Next one now, question number 2. What is the magnification achieved by compound microscope? Just now we have seen here the compound microscope can magnify maximum up to 2000 times. Next one is question second part, an electron microscope. So the maximum magnification in case of electron microscope is given here. You can note down this. Next now we'll move after this progress check to the next part. This was another significant discovery. We are moving on to the developments. First, the invention or the discovery of the cell was made by Robert Hooke. Now inside the cell, the most important part of the cell is the nucleus. It is the center of the cell. So this nucleus, first time it was discovered by Robert Brown in the year 1831. Don't confuse between Robert Hooke and Robert Brown. Robert Hooke discovered cell, Robert Brown discovered the nucleus. So further more developments came up in the field of biology with regard to cell. The most significant was in the field of cell was cell theory. This cell theory was given by two individuals. One is Matthias Schleiden. He was a German botanist. Another one was Theodor Schwann. Theodor was also a German. He was a zoologist. So both of them gave their own theories separately. They made their announcement, not together. First, the theory was given by Schleiden in the year 1838. After that, 1 year later, Schwann came up with this theory in 1839. But both the points are relevant or important. So let us see what Schleiden said. First, the Schleiden announcement was that every plant is made up of a large number of cells, and what he said was regard to plant. Next one, 1 year later, Schwann came up. He was a zoologist who studied animals. So he also gave another statement. He said that all animals and plants are composed of cells which serve as the unit of structure and function. In the beginning of the class we have seen cell is the structural and the basic unit of life. So that concept first time it was given in the cell theory only. Today we know that cell is the basic unit of life, but when it was proposed first time it was given in the cell theory. That is the combination of these two concepts, Schleiden and Schwann. These names you have to remember whatever are coming. So this is the cell theory. It was further developed by another person, that is Rudolf Virchow. He gave another concept. Let us see here. All the points have been summed up here. So the cell theory, these three statements you have to remember. Cell theory is the most important part for the study of science or cell as a whole. We can say it is the core of biology. In biology, everything relates to cells. So the 3 points we'll read here. First point is regarding the cell theory. All living things are composed of cell. Any kind of living thing, it can be plant, animal or any life form, it is having cells. It can be a single cell or it can be a multicellular, having many cells in the same body. Next, second point, these cells are actually what? These are the basic unit of life. So that is the second point of cell theory. It was given by Schwann. First point is given by Schleiden, second is given by Schwann. The third point, later on this was added in the cell theory. It was given by Rudolf Virchow, that new cells produced from existing cell. Older cells are there, whatever older cells are there, it will divide into two forms. That is, it will form two different cells. Two different cells will form from the single cell. So each and every cell will keep on dividing itself, and the number of cells will increase. So each cell comes from an earlier cell. Cells do not originate on their own. Every cell originates from an earlier cell. That is by cell division it is taking place. So here you can see, this is the concept given by Rudolf Virchow. New cells are producing from the pre-existing cells. So these three names you have to remember with regard to cell theory: Schleiden, Schwann and Virchow. So the development of cell theory we have seen. Here is a summary of all the things, all the concepts regarding the development of cell as a whole. First one, that is not mentioned in the book, but I have kept here, that is Marcello Malfigi. The first concept regarding the existence of cell was predicted. It is not given in book, we can leave that. The next one was Robert Hooke and Leeuwenhoek. They actually initiated this process. Leeuwenhoek gave the first microscope, Robert Hooke gave the term cell, and in fact he discovered the cell first time in the form of compartment-like appearances, what he observed in the cork cell. Next one is Schleiden and Schwann. He gave these both people gave the cell theory, and also it was modified by Rudolf Virchow. So this is all. And Robert Brown, I told you, he discovered what? He discovered nucleus. So this is all the summary of all the related developments with respect to cell. Having learned about the cell, its definition and the discovery of cell and associated topics of the cell theory and the microscope, now we will move on to the variety of cell. How many types of cell can be there, or the different organisms are possessing single cell, multicellular organisms are there. Let us have a look on these topics here. You should have a reading also of the textbook here. Now first one is single celled organisms. Some organisms can exist as single celled. They are called as unicellular. Those living organism which exist in a single cell only, they are called as unicellular organism. Example, you can say bacteria and amoebas. So amoebas are also single celled. Next one is few celled, means they are not many in number but few celled. Example is given here, volvox, that is an example of few celled organism. Next one is multicellular. Multicellular, like our own body, is a group of millions or millions of cells. So that is human beings. Even different things around us, different living things around us are multicellular organisms. It can be anything. Next, now smallest cell. The smallest one, because the single celled organisms are having only one cell. So the example is given there, bacteria. The longest one you have to remember, the longest cell of our body is nerve cell. You've been studying earlier in the previous classes about the nerve cell as well. So the longest cell of the living beings is the nerve cell. The largest one is the ostrich egg. You can see here the ostrich egg is the largest single egg. It is only one cell. Next one, we will move now to the cell shapes. Different shapes are also observed in the cells, and these shapes are actually serving some purpose. The shape of the cells are varying in nature for some function to perform by the cell. For example, the nerve cell is very long. Why is it so? Because what is the function of nerve cell? To conduct the impulses. And impulses means the electrical messages whatever our brain is sending to the body parts. So this message has to be sent from the brain to the distant body parts all over the body. That message has to be transferred. So that is why the nerve cells are very long. So it justifies the nature or the shape of the cell, because the message has to be transferred to a long distance. Nerve cells are long. Next one, you can see muscle cells. They are also long and contractile. Why is it so? So that the parts of our body can be pulled or squeezed. Contraction and relaxation can be there in the muscles easily. So that is why their shape is like this. Next, you can see the red blood cell. Red blood cell are circular in shape and biconcave. Biconcave structure is bent from one side. That is called biconcave. So why is it so? So that they can pass through the narrow capillaries in our body vessels. They can pass easily through them. because of this structure, and also they have to transport oxygen. This will be the function of the red blood cell. To perform this function, they are having the shape as such. So different shapes are observed in the cells so that they can perform their necessary or required function. Having been discussed about the varying cell sizes and shapes, we will now move on to the progress check questions. This is your homework for you this week. Find out the answers and try to solve. We will be discussing in the upcoming class. So here I will take a pause for the chapter now. In the upcoming class we will be discussing the parts of a cell. What different cell organelles are present inside a cell, what are their functions, what are their roles in the cell, what they are doing. That will be the very important part of this chapter. I am not beginning now, otherwise the topic would be left in between. I don't want to do that. So today's part was just an introduction of the cell, how it was discovered, and the related topics, the cell theory, the sizes and shape. In the upcoming class, that will be very important. We will be discussing about the cell organelles and their function.